First contact in peril. The crystalline vessels of the Solarian Expedition Fleet sparkled against the backdrop of infinite space, their translucent hulls refracting the light of distant stars. Ambassador Era stood at the main observation deck of the flagship Luminary, her slender 7-foot frame casting a prismatic shadow across the polished floor. The skin along her elongated neck and exposed arms shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with excitement. Solar System approach vector confirmed, Ambassador, announced first observer Callan, his voice melodious and calm. Preliminary scans indicate the third planet harbors the sentient species we've been monitoring. Era's bioluminescent patterns brightened in response. Excellent. After 30 cycles of observation, we finally witness humanity's cradle world with our own eyes. The Solarian Expedition Fleet consisted of 12 vessels, each a marvel of crystalline engineering that had taken the peaceful species over 500 years to perfect. Their civilization had evolved beyond conflict thousands of years ago, focusing instead on scientific discovery and cultural development. Their ships were designed for exploration and diplomacy, not war, a fact that had never been an issue until now. Ambassador, Kalen's voice shifted to a higher pitch, indicating alarm. Multiple objects emerging from fold space at coordinates 37 Mark 12. Era's patterns dimmed. Identify. Unknown configuration, Kalen replied, his own patterns flashing with concern. But energy signatures match. Kraken vessels. A collective hush fell over the bridge. The Kraken were known throughout the galactic rim as hunters and conquistadors, a species that had evolved from apex predators and maintained their carnivorous tendencies even after achieving space travel. They conquered rather than explored, consumed rather than communicated. How many? Era asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 initial signatures. Now 5. 8. 12. Kalen's voice grew more distressed with each count. They're deploying in a strategic formation around our fleet. On the main view screen, the Kraken vessels emerged from fold space like nightmare creatures from ancient Solarian mythology. Unlike the elegant crystalline structures of the Solarian ships, the Kraken vessels were biomechanical abominations, part grown, part constructed. Their hulls resembled the chitinous exoskeletons of massive insects, with protruding spike-like structures and pulsing red veins that ran along their surfaces. They've completely surrounded us, reported the navigation officer. All escape vectors blocked. Hail them, Era commanded, straightening her posture. Perhaps we can negotiate. The communication attempt was met with silence for several long moments. Then, a guttural voice filled the bridge, accompanied by the image of a Kraken commander on the view screen. His skin was a mottled gray-green, with bony ridges along his skull and jaw. 4 yellow eyes with vertical pupils regarded the Solarians with cold calculation. I am Warlord Drekker of the Kraken Dominion, the creature announced. You have entered our hunting grounds. Your ships and your crew now belong to us. Era stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over despite her fear. Warlord Drekker, I am Ambassador Era of the Solarian Collective. We were unaware this system was claimed by the Kraken. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration and scientific discovery. We will withdraw immediately. Drekker's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Solarians, even better. Your crystalline technology will make an excellent addition to our fleet, and your kind are known to be delicious. Horror rippled through the bioluminescent patterns of every Solarian on the bridge. Prepare to be boarded, Drekker continued. Resistance is futile and unnecessary. You have no weapons. The screen went dark, leaving the Solarians in stunned silence. They're moving closer, Callan reported, his voice trembling. Energy readings indicate they're preparing grappling mechanisms. Era's mind raced. The Solarians had no weapons, no defensive systems beyond basic shields. Their philosophy of peace had served them well for millennia, but now faced with predators, they were as helpless as the primitive creatures their ancestors had once been. The third planet, Era suddenly said. How far? Approximately 8 light minutes, replied the navigation officer. But Ambassador, we cannot outrun the Kraken vessels. Their propulsion systems are vastly superior. I don't intend to run, Era said, her patterns pulsing with determination. I intend to call for help. From whom? Kalen asked, confusion evident in his voice. The humans. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, let alone the Krakens. Era moved to the communication station. They may be technologically behind us, but they're not. Surrounded by Kraken warships. And from what we've observed, they have something the Kraken might not expect. What's that? A warrior spirit, Era replied, her fingers dancing across the console. While we evolved to become scholars and explorers, humans evolved as both prey and predator. They understand both fear and courage in ways we never had to learn. The nearest Kraken vessel was now close enough that they could see the individual armor plates on its hull. Metal tendrils extended from its sides, reaching toward the closest Solarian ship. Ambassador, called the sensor officer. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the third planet. The humans appear to have noticed our presence and the Krakens. Perfect, Era said, finalizing the emergency transmission. Send this message directly to their planet, on all frequencies they might monitor. Include our translation matrices. The message was simple but urgent. Crystalline ships in peril, predators attacking, help requested from Earth. Attached were images of the Solarian fleet surrounded by the Kraken warships. Message away, confirmed the communications officer. But Ambassador, even if they receive it, what can they do? Era watched as the first Kraken tendrils made contact with the outer hull of the smallest Solarian vessel. I don't know, she admitted, but I studied their history. When faced with overwhelming odds, humans have a remarkable capacity for innovation and sacrifice. And if they choose not to help, Kalen asked quietly, then we will meet our end with dignity, Era replied. But something tells me the humans won't stand by and watch another species be hunted, not in their own backyard. The bridge fell silent as they watched the Kraken vessels closing in. The first boarding teams would breach the smallest ship within minutes. After that, it would be a systematic harvest of the entire fleet. Suddenly, the sensor officer straightened in his seat. Ambassador, I'm detecting a response from Earth. They've received our message. Hope flared within Era's bioluminescent patterns. What do they say? It's a simple message. Hold position. Help is coming. Skepticism showed on Kalen's face. What kind of help could they possibly offer against a Kraken hunting fleet? As if in answer, the sensor officer called out again. Multiple small craft launching from Earth's surface. They're accelerating at incredible speeds. On the view screen, tiny objects appeared, growing larger as they approached the Solarian fleet with velocity that defied the Solarians' understanding of human technology. How is this possible? Kalen wondered aloud. Our observations indicated their propulsion systems were far less advanced. It appears, Era said with growing wonder, that humans have kept some secrets from watching eyes. The lead human vessel, now close enough to be clearly visible on the view screen, was unlike anything the Solarians had seen before. It wasn't elegant like their crystalline ships, nor was it biomechanical like the Kraken vessels. Instead, it appeared to be assembled from angular metal panels, with massive thruster arrays and what could only be described as weapon systems protruding from multiple points. A new voice came over the communication system, confident, determined, and unmistakably human. This is Commander Elena Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Ambassador Era, we received your distress call. We're here to help. Please hold your position while we deal with these unwelcome visitors. The human ships, 16 in total, were now in formation, streaking toward the Kraken vessels with reckless speed. They were tiny compared to the massive hunter ships, yet they showed no signs of slowing or hesitation. They're going to be destroyed, Kalen whispered. They can't possibly stand against Kraken technology. Era wasn't so sure. Perhaps, or perhaps we're about to witness something extraordinary. On the view screen, the human vessels split into 4 groups, each targeting a different section of the Kraken formation. The Kraken, seemingly surprised by the humans' boldness, began to reorient their vessels to face this new threat. "Warlord Drecker is hailing us again," reported the communications officer. Drecker's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of amusement and irritation. "Your primitive allies are an unexpected development, Ambassador, but they will make no difference. Their ships are toys compared to our hunting vessels." Before Era could respond, Commander Chen's voice cut in, her transmission overriding the Kraken's. "Warlord Drecker, is it? This is Commander Chen of Earth. I'm giving you one chance to release the Solarian ships and leave our solar system. This is your only warning." Drecker's laughter echoed through the bridge. "Your species hasn't even mastered interstellar travel, human. What makes you think?" His transmission abruptly cut off as the human vessels unleashed their first attack. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Earth ships, striking the nearest Kraken vessel with pinpoint accuracy. The impact points glowed white-hot, and to the Solarians' astonishment, the Kraken ship's hull began to rupture. "Impossible," breathed Callan. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate Kraken armor." "Ambassador," the sensor officer called out, "I'm analyzing the human weapon signatures. They're using some form of directed plasma energy we've never encountered before. It's bypassing the Kraken shields entirely." The human vessels continued their assault, moving with an agility that seemed to defy physics. They darted between the much larger Kraken ships, firing precise shots at what appeared to be critical systems. "Their tactics are unorthodox," Era observed. "They're not engaging in traditional formation combat. Each vessel seems to be operating independently yet coordinated." The Kraken fleet, initially caught off guard, began to respond with their own weapons, massive energy cannons that could vaporize a small moon. Yet the human ships moved too quickly, evading the devastating blasts with maneuvers that no Solarian pilot would have attempted. "Commander Chen is hailing us again," announced the communications officer. "Ambassador Era." Chen's voice was steady despite the obvious sounds of battle in the background. "We've analyzed the Kraken vessels and identified their weaknesses. We can create an opening for you to retreat toward Earth orbit. Our planetary defenses can protect you there." "Thank you, Commander," Era responded, genuine gratitude in her voice. "But we cannot abandon your people to face these predators alone." "With all due respect, Ambassador," Chen replied, "your ships aren't equipped for combat. The best way you can help is by getting to safety and sharing what you know about these Kraken. We'll hold them off." As they spoke, 3 of the human vessels coordinated an attack on one of the larger Kraken ships. They flew in a tight formation, unleashing a barrage of missiles that detonated in sequence along the Kraken vessel's propulsion system. The massive ship began to list to one side, its engine core breached. "First blood to the humans," Callan murmured in disbelief. Era made her decision. "Navigation. Plot a course to Earth orbit as Commander Chen suggested. All vessels to follow in tight formation." As the Solarian fleet began to move, the human ships intensified their attack, drawing the Kraken's attention and fire away from the retreating crystalline vessels. Era watched with a mixture of gratitude and concern as the tiny human ships continued their seemingly impossible battle against overwhelming odds. "Ambassador," Callan said quietly, "I believe we may have underestimated humanity." Era nodded, her bioluminescent patterns glowing with a new emotion, respect. "Indeed, and I suspect the Kraken are about to learn the same lesson." As the Solarian fleet accelerated toward Earth, the sounds of battle faded behind them. But Era knew this was just the beginning. The Kraken would not retreat easily, and humanity had just entered a conflict that would change the course of galactic history. For better or worse, first contact had been made, and it had been made in blood and fire. Humanity's response. Commander Elena Chen braced herself against the control console as her ship, The EDF Wasp-1 executed a near-impossible evasive maneuver. The G-forces would have crushed a pilot without the specialized compression suit she wore. Behind her, the massive Kraken vessel fired another volley of energy weapons, missing her craft by mere meters. Phoenix Squadron, maintain attack pattern Delta. Elena commanded through her neural link. Draw their fire away from the Solarian retreat vector. Copy that. Commander, Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez responded, her WASP-4 craft spiraling between two Kraken ships with reckless precision. But these bastards are catching onto our patterns. Elena checked her tactical display. The crystalline Solarian vessels were making good progress toward Earth, their formations tight and disciplined despite never having flown under fire before. Meanwhile, her squadron of 16 WASP fighters was performing beyond expectations against the 12 Kraken warships. Adjust to random attack vectors, Elena ordered. Keep them guessing. 24 hours earlier, Elena had been overseeing routine orbital defense drills when Global Defense Command detected the arrival of the Solarian fleet at the edge of the solar system. Humanity had been aware of alien observation for decades, but had deliberately maintained a facade of technological inferiority. The WASP fighters, with their revolutionary Mobius drive and plasma lance technology, remained Earth's most closely guarded secret. No one had anticipated the arrival of the Kraken. Commander, Captain Lewis's voice came through the neural link from Earth Command. Solarian fleet is 8 minutes from lunar orbit. Defensive grid is standing by to provide cover. What's your status? Elena banked her fighter sharply, targeting a vulnerable junction on the nearest Kraken ship. We've damaged 3 of their vessels, but they're adapting to our attack patterns. These hunters learn quickly. Can you disengage and return to base? Negative, Elena replied, firing a precision burst at the Kraken vessel. The plasma lance struck true, severing one of the biomechanical tendrils. If we retreat now, they'll pursue the Solarians all the way to Earth. We need to keep them occupied. There was a moment of silence from command. Understood. The Archimedes Protocol has been authorized. Elena's breath caught. The Archimedes Protocol was a last resort option, never before implemented outside of simulations. Sir, are you certain? We haven't tested it in actual combat. We're out of options, Commander. The Solarians need more time, and your squadron can't hold indefinitely. Elena closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed determination. Copy that. Initiating Archimedes Protocol. She switched to the squadron-wide channel. All units prepare for Archimedes maneuver. Sync your Mobius drives to my signal, and prepare for coordinated fold space jump on my mark. The acknowledgments came in rapid succession as her pilots, the best Earth had to offer, prepared for a maneuver that theoretically could tear their ships apart. Target the lead Kraken vessel, Elena continued. We're going to show these hunters what happens when they trespass in our solar system. The WASP fighters regrouped with impossible speed, forming a perfect arrowhead formation with Elena's craft at the tip. The Kraken vessels, sensing a new threat, began converging their fire on the human squadron. Mobius drives synchronized, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. Ready on your mark. 3, 2, 1. Execute. 16 WASP fighters simultaneously activated their Mobius drives, a technology that manipulated localized spacetime to create micro-fold space events. The effect was instantaneous. The fighters vanished from their position and reappeared simultaneously at different points around the lead Kraken vessel, their plasma lances firing in perfect coordination at predetermined weak points. The massive hunter ship's defenses had no time to react. 16 precision strikes hit simultaneously, bypassing shields and armor to strike at critical systems. The Kraken vessel shuddered, its biomechanical structure convulsing as cascading failures rippled throughout its systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the vessel's central power core breached, releasing a blinding flash of energy. When the light faded, the once mighty hunter ship was nothing but drifting debris. Direct hit, someone shouted over the comm. Kraken flagship destroyed. Elena allowed herself a momentary smile before reality reasserted itself. Don't celebrate yet. Form up and prepare for the next target. The remaining Kraken vessels seemed to hesitate, as if shocked by the destruction of their leader. That hesitation gave the human fighters precious seconds to regroup. Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Olympus Mountains, General Marcus Rivera watched the battle unfold on the massive holographic display. Beside him stood Dr. Eliza Hayes, the theoretical physicist whose work had made the Mobius drive possible. "They actually did it," Dr. Hayes whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and horror. "The synchronized space-fold attack actually worked." "At what cost?" General Rivera asked, noting the fluctuating energy signatures from the WASP fighters. "How long can those drives hold up under combat conditions?" Dr. Hayes checked the incoming data on her tablet. "The strain on the drive matrices is significant. I estimate 3, maybe 4 more synchronized jumps before molecular cohesion becomes an issue." The general's face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed his concern. "And the Solarians?" "5 minutes from lunar orbit," replied the tactical officer. "The lunar defense grid is already activated and standing by." Rivera nodded. "And our guests?" At the far end of the command center, Ambassador Ira and First Observer Kalen stood watching the battle unfold, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with a mixture of awe and dismay. They had arrived via emergency shuttle just minutes earlier, the first Solarians ever to set foot on Earth soil. "Ambassador," Rivera said, approaching the tall, ethereal beings, "I apologize for the circumstances of our first meeting." Ira's patterns shifted to acknowledge him. "General Rivera, we are the ones who should apologize. We inadvertently brought this conflict to your doorstep." "The Kraken would have found us eventually," Rivera replied. "Better to face them now, with allies, than alone." Later, Kalen stepped forward, his patterns betraying his confusion. "Your technology. It is far beyond what our observations suggested. We believe your species was at least a century away from developing fold space capabilities." Rivera exchanged a glance with Dr. Hayes before responding. "We discovered long ago that it's sometimes advantageous to be underestimated. Earth has faced its own predators throughout history. We've learned caution. A wise strategy," Ira acknowledged. "But now your people are dying to protect ours. This was not our intention when we sought contact." The general's expression softened slightly. "First contact rarely goes as planned, Ambassador. But I believe this alliance, forged in battle though it may be, could benefit both our species." On the holographic display, the battle continued to rage. The WASP fighters executed another synchronized fold space jump, this time targeting one of the Kraken vessels that was attempting to pursue the retreating Solarian fleet. The attack was successful, severely damaging the hunter ship, but the strain was becoming evident. 2 of the human fighters showed significant power fluctuations afterward. "Commander Chen," Rivera called over the secure channel. "Status report." 2 more Kraken vessels heavily damaged. Elena responded, her voice tight with concentration. "But WASP-7 and WASP-12 are experiencing drive instabilities. We can't risk another synchronized attack." "The Solarians are almost within the lunar defense grid," Rivera informed her. "Begin your withdrawal." "With respect, sir, if we withdraw now, the remaining Kraken will regroup and attack en masse." "That's an order, Commander. The next phase is about to begin." Elena didn't question the command further. "Copy that. Phoenix Squadron, disengage and execute emergency withdrawal pattern. Bearing 227 Mark 45. Full thrust." The WASP fighters broke off their attack runs and accelerated toward Earth, leaving the damaged but still formidable Kraken fleet behind. For a moment, it seemed the hunters would pursue. Then the space between Earth and the battle zone suddenly lit up with hundreds of pinpoint energy signatures. "What's happening?" Kalen asked, staring at the display. Dr. Hayes answered, a hint of pride in her voice. "The Artemis network is activating. Across the surface of the moon, and extending into cislunar space. Hundreds of previously dormant satellites and defense platforms came online simultaneously. Each was small, barely detectable even at close range, but together they formed the most powerful defensive grid humanity had ever created. The leading Kraken vessels, charging after the retreating human fighters, suddenly found themselves under attack from all sides. Precision energy beams lanced out from the seemingly empty space, striking with unerring accuracy at the already damaged sections of the hunter ships. The Artemis network uses distributed energy projection, Rivera explained to the amazed Solarians. No single platform is powerful enough to threaten a Kraken ship, but working in concert, they become overwhelming. Era finished, her patterns glowing with understanding. A perfect defensive strategy for a young species. On the tactical display, 3 more Kraken vessels suffered critical damage under the Artemis network's concentrated fire. The remaining ships began to pull back, regrouping at a safer distance. "They're retreating," announced the tactical officer. "All Solarian vessels have successfully entered lunar orbit. Phoenix Squadron is approaching return vector." A collective breath of relief passed through the command center, but General Rivera's expression remained grim. "They're not retreating," he said quietly. "They're reassessing. Hunters don't abandon their prey so easily, especially after losing their alpha." Ambassador Era stepped closer to the holographic display, studying the movement of the Kraken vessels. "I fear you're right, General. This is merely a tactical withdrawal. Our studies of predator species suggest they will return in greater numbers." "How much greater?" Rivera asked. "The Kraken are known to travel in hunting packs of 50 to 100 vessels," Callan replied. "What we faced today was merely a scouting force." The information settled over the command center like a heavy shroud. Earth had won the first battle, but at a cost. 4 of the 16 WASP fighters had suffered critical damage to their Mobius drives. The Artemis network had expended nearly 30% of its energy reserves, and this was against only 12 enemy vessels. "How long do we have?" Rivera asked. "Based on observed Kraken behavior," Callan answered, "they will summon reinforcements from the nearest outpost. Perhaps 2 of your Earth days." Rivera nodded solemnly. "Then we have work to do." He turned to the communications officer. "Contact all Earth Defense Force commands, initiate Global Defensive Protocol Alpha, and prepare accommodations for our Solarian allies. We have much to discuss." As the command center erupted into organized chaos, Elena's voice came through one final transmission as Phoenix Squadron approached Earth. "Command, this is WASP-1. Permission to speak freely." "Granted, Commander," Rivera responded. "We bloodied their noses today, but they'll be back angry. If we're going to survive what's coming, we need to understand how these Kraken think, how they fight, and we need every advantage we can get." "Understood, Commander. Report to debriefing once you've landed. You'll be joining our strategic session with the Solarian representatives." "Copy that." There was a pause. Then, "General, were those really aliens I just fought alongside today?" Despite the gravity of the situation, Rivera allowed himself a small smile. "Welcome to the New World Order, Commander. It seems humanity is no longer alone in the universe." "Never was, sir," Elena replied. "Just took us a while to meet the neighbors." As Phoenix Squadron entered Earth's atmosphere, their sleek forms leaving trails of ionized air in their wake, humanity faced an uncomfortable truth. They had just announced their presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. There would be no going back to the comfortable isolation they had maintained for so long. The war had just begun, and Earth stood at the precipice of a new age, one that would either see humanity rise as a galactic power or fall beneath the onslaught of hunters who had perfected the art of conquest over thousands of years. And caught in the middle were the Solarians, a peaceful species who had never known war, now bound to humanity by the most ancient of bonds, the alliance of those who stand together against a common enemy. As Ambassador Era watched the human fighters return, her patterns pulsed with a complex mixture of emotions. "Your people fight with remarkable courage," she said to General Rivera. "It's not courage that makes humans dangerous," Ambassador Rivera replied. "It's desperation. When backed into a corner, there's nothing more dangerous than a species that refuses to die quietly." Era considered this. "Then, for the sake of the galaxy, I hope the Kraken learn that lesson before it's too late." Rivera's expression hardened. "For their sake, so do I." The counterattack. 36 hours after the initial engagement, Commander Elena Chen stood in Earth's Strategic Command Center, studying the holographic display that showed the approaching Kraken reinforcements. As Callan had predicted, the hunters had returned, not with 50 ships as expected, but with 75. "They're not taking any chances this time," Elena observed, her face illuminated by the red glow of enemy signatures. "They've assembled a full hunting pack. And they've adapted their formation based on our previous engagement," noted General Rivera, pointing to the staggered approach pattern of the Kraken vessels. "No more tightly packed groups vulnerable to our synchronized attacks." The command center hummed with tense activity as military personnel from all Earth nations worked alongside Solarian scientists. The unexpected alliance had accelerated technological cooperation at an unprecedented rate. Ambassador Era approached the central planning table, her tall frame drawing attention even among the crowd. The bioluminescent patterns across her skin pulsed with concern. "Our analysis of the Kraken communication signals indicates they've called for even more reinforcements," she reported. "What you see now is merely the first wave." "How many in total?" Rivera asked, his expression grim. "At least 200 vessels," Era replied softly. "Perhaps more." The number sent a ripple of unease through the command center. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of 48 operational WASP fighters, the Artemis network still recharging from the previous battle, and a handful of conventional space vessels that would be virtually useless against Kraken technology. "Even with the modifications to our ships," Elena said, gesturing to where Solarian engineers worked alongside human technicians to integrate crystalline technology into the WASP fighters, "we can't possibly match their firepower." "Then we don't try to," came a new voice. Dr. Eliza Hayes stepped forward, pushing a strand of gray hair back from her face. The theoretical physicist had barely slept since the first engagement, working alongside Solarian scientists to combine their technologies. "We use what the Kraken don't expect, asymmetrical warfare." Rivera raised an eyebrow. "Elaborate." "The Kraken are apex predators, evolutionarily and culturally," Dr. Hayes explained. "They hunt in packs, using overwhelming force against weaker prey. But throughout Earth's history, humans have defeated larger predators not through strength, but through intelligence and unconventional tactics." Elena nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "Guerrilla warfare, hit and run attacks." "Precisely," Dr. Hayes confirmed. "The Mobius drive gives our ships an advantage the Kraken can't match: unpredictability. We can't outgun them, but we can outsmart them." "And we have another advantage," added Callan, who had been working closely with Dr. Hayes. The Solarians' patterns shifted to a configuration that Elena had learned indicated excitement. "The Kraken ships are partially biological. They're vulnerable to certain frequencies that wouldn't affect mechanical vessels." A plan began to form, daring, desperate, and exactly the kind of strategy that made humans such dangerous opponents. Over the next hour, the combined human-Solarian team refined the details, identifying weaknesses in the Kraken formation and biology that could be exploited. As the strategy session concluded, General Rivera addressed the gathered commanders. "I won't lie to you. This plan is high risk. We're asking our pilots to engage in close-quarters combat with a technologically superior enemy. But if we succeed, we prove that Earth is not easy prey. And neither are our allies." He turned to Elena. "Commander Chen, you'll lead Phoenix Squadron in the primary assault. Captain Okafor will command Falcon Squadron as backup. The modified WASP fighters are ready for deployment." Elena stood straighter. "Yes, sir. We won't let you down." As the meeting dispersed, Ambassador Era approached Alina. The Solarian towered over the human commander, yet there was a gentleness to her movements that belied her imposing height. "Commander," Era said, her voice melodious despite the tension in her patterns, "I wish to apologize again for bringing this conflict to your world." Alina shook her head. "There's no need, Ambassador. The Kraken would have found us eventually. Better to face them on our terms, with allies at our side." "Your people show remarkable courage," Era observed. "The Solarians abandoned warfare thousands of years ago. We've forgotten what it means to fight for survival." "With respect, Ambassador," Alina replied, "sometimes survival requires remembering how to be dangerous." Era's patterns shifted thoughtfully. "Perhaps you're right. Our peaceful evolution has left us vulnerable to species like the Kraken. There is wisdom in maintaining one's defenses." "We'll protect your people," Alina promised. "And when this is over, perhaps you can teach us more about peace." The Solarians' patterns brightened momentarily. An exchange of knowledge. War and peace. How very human. 4 hours later, Alina sat in the cockpit of her modified WASP fighter, now designated Phoenix 1. The integration of Solarian crystalline technology had transformed the already advanced craft into something entirely new. Crystal lattices now reinforced the structural integrity field, while Solarian energy harmonics had been incorporated into the plasma lance weapons. "Phoenix Squadron, sound off," Alina commanded, initiating the pre-launch sequence. One by one, her pilots responded. 16 voices, each representing one of Earth's finest. Behind them, Captain Okuffer's Falcon Squadron, another 16 fighters, prepared to launch as the second wave. "Remember your training," Alina continued. "Stick to your